there is a lot that needs to be exposed about the many institutions that run the world. See, be it a Orthodox religious institution or an atheist secular institution, there are agendas that are being taught to people that keep them trapped in environments that do not allow them to grow. Fundamentally, it is denial of God, because God is above all. And the minute that people place themselves as a barrier between the individual and God, the individual begins to lose their ability to connect with the source of all that we know and see. So how is it possible to continue on in this life if you're not associated with all of the so-called guides that exist to tell you how to live? The answer is the fact that you actually have access to the Word of God Himself. And that's something that some people find to be laughable. Some people find that to be a joke or a delusion, but it's not. It's actually the truth. And there are thousands of religions in the world. Each of them claim to be the actual Word of God and the truth. But there are 5 books written by the prophet Moses that recount the history of the Jewish nation, beginning with the creation of the world, following the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, into the story of the Exodus of the Jewish people from Egypt, and how they eventually came to the land of Israel. And it's a very intense story. It's a story of great triumph and great failure. But the overarching message is the fact that God is the creator, and God demands certain things from us in order for us to be successful in this life. And it's not some sort of vague commandment. It's not some sort of God is love and everything goes. It is a strict set of rules and principles that, if followed correctly, will allow for the world to be in its state of good creation, as God intended. I went through many years of rabbinical school, training to become an Orthodox rabbi, which is the most intense form of Judaism and the most legitimately practiced sect of Judaism on earth. In fact, the Orthodox make the claim that they are the sole providers of truth and that they are the only ones amongst the Jewish people that uphold the Torah. And in a sense, they are correct. Most of the Jews have no affiliation with the Torah. Some of them completely deny that the Torah is divine. However, there is a sinister problem with the Orthodoxy, and that is that in the same way that the secular are dishonest because they completely reject everything that God stands for and everything that He said, the Orthodox are dishonest because they claim that it's them who transfer it to you, and that only through their understanding and through their focus and lens and prism can you come to understand the words of God. This is deeply dishonest because the Word of God is written clearly for anyone to read. And instead of encouraging people to go and read the words of God Himself, which are written in 5 not so long books, they point people in the opposite direction. They tell them to go read hundreds, if not thousands of books written over thousands of years by thousands of different rabbis and different individuals over the course of history. And this distracts people from the foundation which exists right before their eyes. I myself realized this as a young rabbinical student in school, seeing that there was an endless curriculum that had to be studied, while there was no actual progress getting done. There was study from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. at night, Talmud, pages and pages. What does this commentary say on this commentary, and that commentary on that commentary? And there'd be circular discussions for hours on end. But what was actually getting done? Where was the actual salvation in all of it? Where was the actual enlightenment in all of it? It was non-existent. And that's because the only way to keep the system going is to keep young men trapped and to keep them away from girls and away from their own masculinity and away from their own nature in order to create perfect, obedient servants of the state. I reject that path, And the only other path that I can see in my limited view is secularism, right? Well, if orthodoxy is a load of crap, well then secularism, that's where it's at. Enlightened thought, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of practice. You can do whatever the hell you want. It's all great. Turns out it's not so great. It's not so great when you deify yourself and your own reason and your own ideas, and you deny that there is a supreme being that is above you, that guides you and commands you on how to behave. And so, after pulling myself out of the pit of orthodoxy, I found myself deep in the pit of secularism. And that was no better. It's not even worth comparing which one was worse, but they're both bad. And so I realized that there must be a higher truth. There must be something that I'm missing and something that I needed to access. It was at that time that I met a group of friends. And together we formed a community of seekers, young men who were just simply searching for God. And look, we grew up Jewish, we grew up in the Orthodox system, but we knew that there was a higher truth that was being denied and that we needed to access something else. Well, returning to the foundation is where the answer lies. And that is the 5 books of Moses. That is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. You immediately circumvent all of the needless teachings of human beings and all of the endless conversations, and you get right to the point. God created the earth. This is His creation. We are His creatures. We are His, created in His image. We have a purpose. We have to join together, men and women, create families, create communities, societies, and live under His light and under His plan for the world that He's made. When you look out at the world and the way people behave and the things they believe and the things that they do, everyone can admit that things are really messed up. All you hear about on the news all day is how bad things are and how this is wrong and that's wrong. But it's curious that no one ever questions why. Why is it all wrong? Why is it all bad? Perhaps there is something we're missing. And if we were to access the correct way of living, then the world would return to its state of purity. And that is obviously illustrated in the Genesis story, as everyone knows. God starts off the story with man and woman in the Garden of Eden, the Garden of Bliss, the pleasant, beautiful garden planted by God, where our only job was to maintain what God created and to experience His blessings. But through a series of unfortunate events, human weakness and ego was revealed, which caused us to reject God's blessings and follow along the pathways of evil. This continued on for all of history, and nowadays we find ourselves in the same place. But every single time in history and every single generation has a choice. We have a choice to change that. We have a choice to say no more. We're going to make the acknowledgement that we should have made thousands of years ago, and that is that God is the Creator and we are here to obey Him, and that through following the ways that He has set forward for us and through observing His commandments and His decrees, His ideas of morality and His ideas of what's right and wrong, without adding and subtracting our own interpretations and our own complications, but simply taking His words at face value with trust and with faith, we can actually enter a new world of redemption.